Want to move on to quickfire? We ask our listeners to send in questions for our guest every week. You can do that at podcasts@politicon.com via email, podcasts@politicon.com, or send them to us on Twitter or Instagram @Politicon. These questions were sent in specifically for you tonight, and looks as if though I have accidentally asked half of them myself because I've been so fascinated. But let's try. Ophelia from San Francisco asks, does raising $58 matter?
58.
I'm sorry, $58 million. Does raising $58 million matter? $58 might not. $58 million, does it matter?
I think it does. I mean, Harrison has, I think the money sort of got him noticed sort of early on and forced Graham into a defensive posture. And I don't think, if he was raising this money early on, Graham would have been there. And, again, we say it's, may seem hard to us about how to spend that money in South Carolina, but multiple people I've talked to are like, there's ways you can spend it. You can run these more targeted ads. You can do digital ads. You can do voter outreach. I mean, my goodness, for that much, you could have someone drive each individual person to the polls.
Right. But at some point, is it just, if money mattered that much, wouldn't Amy McGrath be closer to Mitch McConnell?
That's a good point. I think this is where candidate quality comes in. I do. Amy McGrath had some very early missteps. I don't think she's been running as sort of targeted and as strong of a campaign. And Harrison, I think just, when we look at this is again why we use sort of qualitative and quantitative data to sort of make these determinations. I think that Harrison has been a better campaigner. Really, and McGrath sort of never really found her sea legs, really. So I do think the money in Kentucky is, is perhaps diminishing returns. But also remember, Kentucky, Trump won that state by 30 points. Trump only won South Carolina by 14 points. And I think South Carolina also, you have a much higher African-American population than you do in Kentucky at all. And when you have an African-American candidate, think of this too. If Jamie Harrison wins, South Carolina, the place where the Civil War started, would be the first state in history to have 2 Black senators.
Right. I know. And if Jamie Harrison doesn't win, then he's coming for Tim Scott in 2 years, probably.
Governor, I think he could run for governor.
Oh, interesting.
That might, we see some Southern governors, Andy Beshear in Kentucky, John Bel Edwards in Louisiana. Right. So we could have
and South Carolina has had a Democrat governor far more recently than it has had a Democrat senator. Yeah. Emily from Virginia Beach asks, well, I'm going to save that one. Let me ask, Nate from Durham. Oh, hey, Nate from Durham. Oh, he asks, do sexting scandals still matter in 2020?
Right now, it doesn't look like it does. I think, Republicans still it sounds like we might actually get a Tillis poll out tomorrow. So we'll see what his numbers say. I do feel like they've been a little more encouraged in recent days by this, or like you were saying, your friends there, did they skip that race? I think it's just what else comes out. I don't think Cunningham has done a good job of managing this. I think he should have gotten out ahead of it. Although he did put out the news on perhaps the, best day that he could when, the president. When
Tillis had just gotten coronavirus too.
Well, and Kellyanne Conway and Bill Stepien, Trump's campaign manager. It was just felt like every hour somebody else was confirmed to get coronavirus.
I will say the question on the poll that was just released this week, Survey USA just did a poll, I guess came out yesterday, the day before, giving my own personal opinion here, which I often do. I was surprised by the question because the question asked specifically sort of what Nate asked. Do sexting scandals, does marital infidelity, does that matter to you? And I don't believe, at least from the ads that I see in North Carolina, that Tom Tillis is running against the infidelity or running against the fact that Cal Cunningham cheated on his wife, but he is running against what people might see as hypocrisy or dishonesty, sort of the same thing that's hurt Lindsay Graham in South Carolina. Right. And that question wasn't asked. The question was, and I think for the most part, all these people who I've talked to, they don't really have a problem with the infidelity. Well, we've got a president who grabs women by the privates. So that's not the issue. The issue is you ran a certain way and in the middle of your election, you pulled a John Edwards, which, we did that already in North Carolina. Yeah. So I think that poll didn't really answer the question.
Yeah, I mean,
that I think needs to be answered.
Voters said it didn't affect their vote, but I think some of them were probably with Cunningham. I will just throw out this stat and do with it what you will. When I looked at that poll and I looked at the one that they had done in September, Tillis was actually leading among men by 11 points. In this new poll, Cunningham was leading among men by 2 points. So Cunningham will lead with men. So, read into that what you will.
Well, this is why, Jessica, you're the pro. You get into the weeds and get into all those crosstabs. So last question. Emily from Virginia Beach asks, what could be the biggest upsets? And then she puts in parentheses, only one right answer. I don't know what that part means, but what do you think the biggest upsets could be this year across the board?
I think that Alaska race would qualify as an upset. And I think, South Carolina, even though we rate it as competitive, in talking with you here, I mean, I think this is what a lot of Southern Democrats have. They sort of can't believe that their states are changing or that they could be in play. And I think that's sort of the same thing happening in South Carolina. So again, I think if Jamie Harrison were to win, you have a state like South Carolina, like I mentioned, that has such a fraught racial history, would have 2 African-American senators. I think that sends a huge message.
Yeah.
That could, that certainly would be a massive upset too.
Hey, I'm Clay Aiken. To hear the full episode, subscribe to This Politicon podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to pods. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show. Go to Politicon.com, follow @Politicon on social media, and listen to a new pod episode of How the Heck every Thursday.